want Europe to become the first climate-neutral continent in the world by 2050.
Most importantly is the works which are going to be done.
Appropriate support for their obligations. We need everyone, and no one can.
As we continue to battle the pandemic, we must also focus on our long-term challenges. This is why the Green Deal, as a growth strategy, remains our compass throughout the recovery.
We will reduce emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And today's agreement puts us on a clear path towards climate neutrality in 2050. It gives certainty to investors, to businesses, to public authorities, and to citizens. It future-proofs our union. Proves our union.
Hello and welcome everyone to the first EU-ASEAN Youth Talk Show. Please join me in welcoming Ligwina Hananto, a professional financial trainer and a stand-up comedian. EU-ASEAN Youth Talk Show. Please join me in welcoming.
Hello, I am sorry, my English is not so good. I don't speak very good English because I speak Australian. What better way to open the EU-ASEAN youth event countries where English is not the first language than open it with someone like me, a lady who speaks Australian English. This is inclusivity, isn't it? How are you guys doing? Throughout the pandemic, all I can think about is going to the beach, and this is as far as I can go. Wearing my fancy beach hat indoors. I know this is really not good for my mental health. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ligwina Hananto. I'm so thrilled to open the EU-ASEAN Youth Talk Show, Green Jobs for Resilient Youth. I wonder, why do they choose me to perform here? I know why. First of all, it must be because of my name. My name is Ligwina. Ligwina. It's from lignite. Lignite, I have right here, is the lowest grade of coal. One of the biggest source of pollution in the whole world. You see, I have a little secret. My dad is a mining engineer. So maybe opening for the EU-ASEAN environmental themed event is a way to repent our family's sins. So that's the first reason they choose me. Here's the second reason. You see, I'm a stand-up comedian, so we are the most dangerous profession during this pandemic. I mean, think about it. Stand-up comedians perform in front of live audiences. We speak loudly. We throw jokes at you. You laugh at us. You know what's happening there? Droplets everywhere. Virus infection at high level. Very dangerous activity. So the last 15 months, all of us stand-up comedians have been out of jobs. We cannot perform at all. We are all endangered species. Sir, now I understand. I can connect with the young environmental conservationists. You guys will have to try save us comedians so we will no longer be part of the endangered species. I'm actually very proud of all these young fellows, the young generations. People in the young generation care more about this planet than the previous generations. I do believe this is because we follow different role models. I am ready to blame the princess stories we all follow as little kids. Think about it. All the new princesses are fabulous princesses who care about the environment. You remember Moana? Moana? She sails through the ocean. That must be Greta Thunberg's inspiration. Who else is a new breed of princess? Let me think. Merida. You remember Merida with her orange curly hair? She hangs out with the bears. Of course, the young generation today care about conservation. One more. The latest princesses who represent our region, Southeast Asia. Raya. Have you guys seen Raya? She is outdoors all the time, eating tom yum soup, eating satay, and eating rice on banana leaves. Raya doesn't use plastic. My children definitely have better role models. I was not so lucky. You see, princesses from my generation were not as fierce and environmentally friendly as Moana, Merida, and Raya. I had to deal with Snow White, Aurora, and Cinderella. Do you remember Snow White? Oh yes, she talks to the animal, okay. She wanders into the woods. But then, she receives food, an apple, from a complete stranger who happened to be an evil witch. And she eats the apple without washing it properly. Let's remember, Snow White is from a different era. Imagine all the pesticides she eats with that apple. Not your ideal role model. The second princess, Aurora. Oh, she is the most useless of them all. You don't remember Aurora, don't you? No. Nobody remembers Aurora. We all know her with her other name. Wait for it. The Sleeping Beauty. We all know when we wake up, we're not beautiful. No. After sleeping, you wake up, you don't end up beautiful. There's no such thing as Sleeping Beauty. How am I going to become someone who cares about the environment if my role model is the Sleeping Beauty? She is definitely not role model for the young, resilient youth. But worst of the role model I follow growing up is Cinderella. I mean, think about it. She goes to the ball to meet Prince Charming, and at the strike of midnight, she runs away. Her shoes fell off, and she continued running. She does not care about one shoe being missing. Shame on you, Cinderella. Are you supporter of fast fashion? Don't you know we can recycle and upcycle fashion? Hello? Do not be Cinderella. Do not be Aurora. And do not be Snow White. Your generation is far better than mine, and be the warriors who care and help preserve our planet. My name is Liguina Hananto, and thank you for laughing with me.
Thank you, Weena. And before we start, I'd like to share a few house rules. If you have any questions anytime during the webinar, please just drop them in the Q&A feature, and the committee will select the questions to be forwarded to the speakers. If you wish to ask questions directly to the speakers, you can just click the raise hand feature, and Weena or Lucas will select participants by order, and the host will allow you to talk. After the session ends, you will be redirected to a feedback questionnaire, and you can please spend a few minutes to share your feedbacks with us so we can be better in our next talk show. Okay, so to continue on, I would like to welcome Weena back, but this time as our moderator.
Thank you very much, Dion. And now I'm going to talk to you with a different tone of voice. I hope you enjoy the little skit of comedy. I miss performing so much. But welcome. Today is World Youth Skill Day. And this first EU-ASEAN Youth Talk Show, we are bringing together 4 ASEAN youth leaders who will share their thoughts, their insights, their stories, and tips. And of course, joining us today, I need someone who is from the European Union. As a host, please welcome Lucas Gaidos, acting head of EU delegation to ASEAN. Hello, Lucas.
Thanks very much, Weena. I'm very glad to see that you learned how to pronounce my surname.
Yes, I was practicing it the last 2 days, saying it out loud and probably dreaming in it.
A bit like a chant, wasn't it? I mean, I really loved your... well, there you go. I really love your sketch and your sorting hat out of Hogwarts. I think you did really well.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'm giving 10 points.
It's somewhere there now.
I'm giving 10 points to Gryffindor to start with. I also love your background, your combination. You're a financial advisor and a stand-up comedian. That's a bit like Pizza Hawaii in my world, you know, an interesting or an
pineapple
intriguing
and
mix.
Pizza, not happening.
Well, there you go. But no, I totally forgot to welcome everyone in our audience. I see all the messages in the chat coming in. I see we have people from all around our region. So it is very good to see
Jakarta,
you.
Philippines, Indonesia, Cambodia. Hi, Feeball. That's fabulous. Thank you, guys. Keep pouring in the chat room, and we'll be reading.
Yeah, I think we have
later.
a very good crowd. I have yet to figure out what is the difference between the host and the moderator, but I'm sure we'll get there eventually. But the most important thing is for you to give us questions later on. I think we want to make this as interactive as possible. Definitely. Because this is more about you, the youth. I'm already in my 30s, so I don't think I count.
Don't ask me about my age. It's not polite to ask about my age.
We haven't brought it up yet. We may get there later on.
Welcome also to everybody who's watching through YouTube and Facebook. And if you are here in the Zoom room with us, you can just click on the Q&A box down below and put your questions there, because in the chat room we're just making hip hip hooray. We might miss it if you put the question there. This topic today is very interesting. It's green jobs. Hold on, before we talk about green jobs, Lucas, so you are into acting. How many movies are you in?
Low-hanging fruit.
I had to do that. So green jobs, what are green jobs? And many youth are actively contributing to the environment and turn it into a career. What do you think about this, Lucas?
I think this is fabulous and highly inspiring. I mean, again, in the run-up to today's event, I've been trying to think what to say at this particular moment. And, you know, as diplomats, we usually think in terms of policies and lines to take and whatnot. So at this juncture, I guess I have to mention our most recent policy, which appeared all over my Twitter and New York Times, Wall Street Journal, whatnot. This morning, we just released a new policy called Fit for 55. Let me just explain it very briefly. Basically, the European Union is aiming to reduce our net greenhouse emissions by at least 55% by 2030. Now, what this means is that I think all across the board in every single job, every single career, we have to think about how to reduce our emissions and how to make our jobs and indeed lives greener. So I'm very pleased to welcome 4 inspiring young individuals who are here to enlighten us on how to do this and who are practicing what they preach, and they're leading by example. I'm very much hoping to learn something from them.
Let's invite them. You have your first introduction there, Lucas.
Indeed, I do. Well, let me start by introducing our first guest, who is an interesting mix of careers. She's a chef, farmer, and entrepreneur. Now, we at the EU, we have a new program called Farm to Fork. I think you're a perfect fit for this, right? With being a farmer, being a chef, and being an entrepreneur. And her name is Louise Mabula. You were born in Manila, but raised in Swansea in Wales. Now, when I was younger, I used to take Arriva Trenau Camry. Arriva Trains Wales. That's just a side note. And as I've mentioned, you're running your own farm, culinary lounge, and social enterprise called the Cacao Project in Camarines Sur, the Philippines. So please welcome Louise Mabula.
Hi, everyone.
A virtual round of applause.
Hi, Louise. Mabuhay. That's the way to say it in the Philippines.
Beautifully done. I really love it. And thanks so much for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Great having you. We have also our second guest, a young PhD student, a researcher from Indonesia with an experience in protecting not stand-up comedians, but the precious Sumatran orangutan. He now specializes in local communities and conservation efforts in his region's rainforest. Give it up for Hamid Arum Harahap. Hi, Arum.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So where are you based now, Arum?
I'm in Tapanuli. Anyway, I actually protecting the Tapanuli orangutan, not the Sumatran orangutan, the Tapanuli one.
Tapanuli ones. Wow. Okay, that would be very specific and very exciting to hear more about. Thank you for joining us. Who do we have next, Lucas?
Well, the next one is a textile and clothing designer from Bangkok, a graduate from the Royal College of Art in London, and the present country coordinator for Fashion Revolution Thailand, who focuses on sustainable fashion. So please welcome Kamonard Ongwandi.
Hello.
Hi, Kamon.
Kamonard, are you
Hi,
here with
everyone.
us? Perfect.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Nice to meet
All
you
right.
all. Yeah.
You must be not a friend of Cinderella then.
Single-use clothes.
Single-use clothes. There you go. All right. Last but not least, we are joined with the marine conservation scientist from Indonesia. It is an archipelago, 17,000 islands. Definitely, we need the marine conservationist here. She is working under Thrive Conservation to study and protect manta rays and whale sharks in eastern Indonesia. Don't tell anybody, but I think the eastern part of Indonesia is so beautiful. So, welcome, Nesha Ichida. Selamat datang, Nesha.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Great. This is fabulous. So, everybody's here now. We got the chit chat. I'm going to go through with the speakers one by one about their profession. We're going to do that. And again, a reminder for everybody who is in the Zoom room, go ahead and submit your question through the Q&A boxes. And if you are in the chat, you want to write anything, the panelists will be able to read them. Make a loud noise in there. We might not be reading all of them, but we know you're there because it's very difficult to get interaction when it's an online event. So your chats are much appreciated. Well, everybody in YouTube and Facebook, we're saying hi to you. So great to have you. So Lucas, I always believe that the future jobs are not discovered yet, but these green jobs, it's definitely here already. This is like the future jobs, no? I thought it's going to be in the next 10, 20 years, but in 2021, green jobs are here to stay. What do you think about this? You're still muted.
I'm unmuted. I'm sorry. This still keeps happening. You know, we've been using these platforms for such a long while. I thought someone would unmute me, but anyway. Yes, this is a very good question. And now that you mention it, it is really fascinating to see that the green future has come so early and that we already have people carrying the flag and showing the way, right? Hacking through the green jungle towards our green future, as to say. And again, I may be repeating myself here, but as I mentioned earlier on, I think all of us as governments or you know, as the European Union, we all have these policies, we have these plans, we have these aspirations about how to make our future greener. But what we really need are people who make it happen with us and for us. We may be able to draft plans and directives and whatnot, but we really need everyone to participate. And this is why I think that today's event is so great. We have people showing us how to do it in real terms, right? This is not an exercise. This is not a
happening.
Study.
Yeah.
This is happening right now in Southeast Asia. So yes. This is why I'm very excited about being in today's event and playing my little part here, but mostly in a listening role, because I'm very excited and very curious about what our participants will tell us.
we have time to ask everybody if you can explain your profession in one sentence, what would it be? Okay, mine would be I talk a lot, but Luis, let me start with you. In one sentence, what is your profession?
Oh, well, my profession is a farmer. And wow, that's a really hard question. Well, I would just say that we're a farmer that works in building climate smart and resilient livelihoods for other farmers.
Thank you. That's fabulous. How about you? Come on. How do you describe your profession?
I use design to facilitate change for businesses and communities. That's it.
Thank you so much. That's so inspiring. How about you, Arum? This will be interesting. How do you describe your profession?
I'll describe it in 3 words. I would say a researcher, practitioner, and educator.
Thank you, Arum. It's fascinating. You focus so much on the educating communities part. I love that. Last but not least, Nesha, don't tell me you swim and dive every day. But yeah, it must be so. But in a simple sentence, how would you describe your profession?
I basically research wildlife underwater and also the ecosystem to help local communities to better preserve it. But also, I basically stock fish all day.
Thank you. So there you go. When we talk about green jobs, it's not too far away from your everyday life. Arum is saying something about educating. A lot of people don't think that green jobs mean about educating. Or a lot of people would think green jobs mean you are inside the forest. Well, of course, that's what he does as well. But a lot of people would think you have to be inside the forest. You need to be an activist. That is important too, but there are so many other green jobs that you can do, and I find that very interesting. So there you go, folks, everyone who's watching, be open about the possibility of creating green jobs in your own profession, because that's where we're heading in the next 10, 20, 30 years. The future is here. We don't need to wait for the future because green jobs are already all around us. Shall we start, Lucas? Let's start with shooting your question. Who do you want to start with?
Before I start, I'm glad that you didn't ask me what I do to describe it in one sentence.
Okay, let's not forget.
Very, very hard.
I'm going to shoot the question then. Let me do this. We're not going to leave you behind. In one sentence, Lucas, how do you describe your profession?
I'll go for the easy way. I build bridges between the European Union and ASEAN. I'm a bridge builder.
Thank you. We love that.
Anyway, today is not about me. So let's move on to Luis, please. And Luis, as we have already established, you're many things. So you're a chef, you're a farmer, you're an environmentalist, you're an entrepreneur. But could you perhaps expand on that a bit? And when you meet a stranger, you're asked, what do you do for a living? What is your answer?
Well, I would tell them about my social venture, which is the Cacao Project. I started this off as a chef. Of course, I transitioned to becoming a farmer, but then I realized that we needed to be able to help our agricultural communities in a much more meaningful way. So my social venture, the Cacao Project, is really an agricultural venture that works with farmers to build resilient, sustainable, regenerative livelihoods and positions them for sustainable success. We work with them at the grassroots level to translate livelihoods towards climate adaptability, environmental stewardship, and of course, empower them to be part of the green recovery of our planet, especially since agriculture is well known to be an unsustainable industry. It's about 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions, but it's also 1/3 of the key to solving our climate crisis.
Yes, indeed. Agriculture is a double-edged sword, isn't it? But going back to the Cacao Project, let me push you a bit more. What are the seeds of the Cacao Project? How did it come about?
I mean, that's a great question. We started in the aftermath of a typhoon. So it was Typhoon Knot 10 on Christmas Eve of December 25th, when we were struck and about 80% of agricultural land was destroyed. And I was a chef who was doing farm to table cuisine, and I realized that our agricultural livelihoods were so heavily impacted. It meant that for 6 months, up to 5 years, our farmers would not have a stable form of income. And on top of that, there's many problematic environmental consequences as a result of people driven to desperation. And the Philippines is one of the most at-risk countries to hazards brought about by climate change, and our farmers are especially beholden to these weather conditions. So what we did was we first started as a typhoon relief effort, but we realized it was a Band-Aid response. So now we're working directly with farmers to really harness the power of our forests, to really rethink food systems and make sure that we close the gap between consumers and producers.
Can you elaborate what exactly you do with the farmers? I mean, we know they're doing farming, but at the Cacao Project itself, what do you specifically do on a day-to-day basis with the farmers?
So we educate them, give them training. And of course, the title Cacao Project is a hint. That's basically the pod where chocolate comes from. So in the local language, cacao is cocoa. And what we do is we grow cocoa, we make sure that we consolidate it and make them into chocolate bars. Very recently, we've launched our own mini chocolate factory so that our farmers can make their own chocolates and close that gap.
Wow. So doesn't mean that working on this social enterprise project bring you a lot of new skills then, because you said you started as a chef and then you start working with the farmers. What would you say the kind of skills most valuable that you learn starting and maintaining the social project?
Yeah, I think that's a really valuable question now. There's a lot of ways to go about it. For me, I started off being homeschooled for a lot of my life. So I had an unconventional background to begin with. So I think in unconventional ways moving forward. And that's a skill that I find really important. I think that one of them that I worked on over time was really empathy and learning that everything is a learning experience. I'm learning a lot from you, Lucas and Liguina, from everything that you're saying. And it's something where you kind of pick up and move and how do you say it? It's like you work off your feet, where you figure things out and find those odd interlinkages. Because for a long time, people wouldn't exactly look at farming and food and put those two into together, or farming and environment, because people would see those industries and think, oh, that's unsustainable. That doesn't go with this other thing. But after a while, I realized that everything is really interlinked. So one of the skills is identifying those interlinkages. The next thing is managing your time and finding ways to apply it in real life and making those solutions. So unconventional thinking really works into that, where you start looking into those interlinkages and seeing, oh, hang on, maybe there's a solution there. If there's a problem, what can I do to apply a solution to these crises, and how can I do things even in the smallest way? So we've had impacts in peace and security, in health, in gender, and people would normally not really think about that when they think of food or agriculture. They'll think of, oh, what am I going to eat now? But it was really looking into them and learning them and applying it into the real world.
Thanks very much, Louise. This was very enlightening, and I also like the part when you showered us with some praise. But let's keep the praise on your side of the court, because you're the one. Yes, you're the one who has achieved a lot. And again, just looking at your brief CV and looking at what the Cacao Project has already achieved, I understand that you've won accolades from various international institutions, including the UN Environment. You've been featured in Forbes Asia Under 30, which is an immense achievement. And of course, you worked with National Geographic, which is one of my favorite institutions and magazines. So how did these institutions find out about your project, and have these awards, has the limelight helped you in terms of further fundraising or just making your work happen?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, at first, when I started off, I wasn't really interested in raising awareness for our project. It was something that I thought would be localized to my community. But after a time, I realized that this was actually a really big advocacy. We were onto something that was much larger than us, and it was really rooted in mindsets. So I started by applying, of course, to grants, and one of them was UN Environment's Young Champions of the Earth program. And I was, out of thousands and thousands of people who applied, I was one of the 7 people who were lauded as a Young Champion of the Earth. And that gave me my initial boost into this whole environmental industry, and actually learning so much more as we work forward and giving limelight and platforms to the work we do. And it's really amplifying the voices of our farmers. And with Forbes as well, you know, one of my dreams, I always sang, I want to be a billionaire and be on the cover of Forbes magazine. And I didn't think that, being in the middle of nowhere in a farming community as a farmer, especially in a country where farmers are considered not very well off, or it's not a great industry to be in, and finding success there, I think it speaks massive amounts for the people who are in this industry, and that there's opportunity for them. So it did start a lot with applying. Same goes with National Geographic. I managed to get a grant from them, and it did was a rigorous process, but it's really putting yourself out there and not being afraid of failure, because the worst thing that could happen is people would say no to you, and it's like, okay, and I'll move on to something better. And now we live in a very intersectional society where people notice that there's a lot of opportunities and changes in green jobs, and agriculture is definitely a platform for that.
Luis, did you start with the thought of having a green job?
Honestly, Liguina, no, I didn't. I thought I just wanted to help out and do what I could in my community. But eventually I realized that having a green job is something to aspire for. People in the Philippines wouldn't normally think that green jobs are something that would be profitable. Your parents will tell you to be a doctor, a diplomat, a lawyer. So no, I did not aspire for a green job. But now when I got into the industry, I realized that it's something that's much more fulfilling, and it's something that people should aspire for, because to live a good quality life is to help others as well.
I love that answer. So all the young folks out there, look out. The green jobs of your choice might be just around the corner and you're not noticing that it's actually a green job. That's very interesting. Thank you, Luis. I need to move to Arum and Nesha from Indonesia. And I'd like to remind everybody, if you want to drop your question in the chat box, and anyone in the panelists, do say hi to the panelists in the chat room. And of course, we are saying hi to everyone who's watching through YouTube and Facebook. Arum and Nesha, welcome back. Birth work and conservation. I'm going to ask a simple question. What's your favorite animal or plant? How about you, Arum? You first. What's your favorite animals or plant?
I'll say our closest relatives, the orangutan.
Of course. How about you, Nesha?
My answer is going to be really boring. You're going to be expecting sharks or manta rays. Of course, I love them. I love studying them. That's why it's so hard to pick a marine animal. So I'm just going to go with the one that I've always said since I was a kid, which is a dog. It still makes me happy.
Nesha, do you eat fish, or is it like in that movie, fish are friends, not food? I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't eat Dory. That's what you're asking. They're my friends.
Okay, Arum, you were recently selected as the European Commission by the European Commission as one of the 17 very handful people, EDD young leaders from around the world. Congratulations. How do you feel about that, Arum, to be recognized internationally?
It's amazing, but also it's a big responsibility, to represent the Indonesia, of course, the Indonesian youth. But yeah, it's amazing to meet and connect with the young people all around the world, and also with the commissioner. And yeah, I would say it's amazing.
You were selected based on your work with local communities, and I noticed that from your answer previously that you are all about research and education. Can you tell us a little bit more on how this is related to forest conservation? Because, a lot of people would think forest conservation is about being a ranger out there, going into the forest, carrying one orangutan and another. Do you do that? Or beyond that, what else do you do? Do let us enlighten us, especially the city person who needs to get out more. I'm inside this room all the time.
Thank you. Yeah, I think most of the work I did was educating for the youth regarding the nature-based solution for climate change. And for the last years, I also actively in research about the dependency of the local communities and the ecosystem services to be formulated in the conservation policies. And as individual, I'm also actively writing in the media, actually, not only working in the forest or, jungle trekking, but also writing in the media what I see, what the problem I see in the fields, and then a campaign about the Sumatera tropical rainforest. And not only that, I also work with the orangutan conservation to concept the Tapanuli orangutan, as I said, the most critical endangered great apes on Earth. But it's not only just stay in the forest, but also to see the people voices, to bring the people voices to the paper, to bring the people voices to the media, and then to deliver the message to the government, to the international agency, and also to to protect to make sure the local voices to be heard. I think that is the point of my works. And apart from them, I also think that educating young people is really important. So I start educating young people since six years ago when I was in the university. And now I also currently working on youth-led project to educate young people and also to learn again our history and how we can connect the history to the conservation itself, of course, to the forest conservation in Tapanuli.
That sounds like a lot of work. Arum, do elaborate more when you talk about community education. Tell me more about the relationship between the local communities that you work with and the forest. What is it like so people will understand?
Sure. Tapanuli itself is a region in the North Sumatra, and it used to be famous as one of the commodities in the pre-colonial area. Let's say if you ever heard about the camphor or the kapur barus, it's used to preserve the mummies for the Egyptian king like Pharaoh or Firaun. So also the Kamenyan. And when you talk about the Tapanuli, there are so many commodity from the local people, but now these commodity are critically endangered. Let's not talk about the orangutan, the tiger, but let's talk about the history of the Tapanuli itself. So the Tapanuli itself, it's known from the commodities, but this commodities, this camphor is critically endangered, and the local communities also lose their economics, their social, and their connection to the forest itself. So yeah,
you're saying all these commodities are from the forest, and so communities are losing their touch with the forest, which means they are less productive when they are not preserving the forest. Is that what you're saying?
Of course, yeah, but also they are culturally culturally decreasing from their culture, decreasing from the forest, because their connection with the forest also decreasing. So it's not only about the economic, the dependency of the economic, but also the social and culture
as well.
Yeah, the identities as well. So this is one of the example from the camphor. Let's talk about the Lake Toba. Have you ever heard about Toba?
Yes.
People say
let me explain this to the audience. Lake Toba is one of the biggest lake in North Sumatra in Indonesia. It's beautiful, it's full of history, and of course, it's a great conservation area for the environment. Let us know more about it, Arum.
Yeah, when people talk about the Lake Toba, people thinking about the the tortor, the music, and tourism. But what we want to try and what we are doing is to bring the problem behind the Lake Toba. If you see the upstream of the Lake Toba, the forest is cutting down, the forest is degrading, and also the local people is the current economic model for the Lake Toba. The tourism is also the industry killing and like displacing the indigenous people from their land. So what we are trying to bring and to educate young people is the reality on the ground. So we are not just focusing on the Lake Toba as a tourism or the international tourism, but we will see what's behind the reality. So we can see the real, not harmonizing or romanticizing the what we see in the media, but also the reality on the ground.
That's a mighty task at hand of you, Arum, and I applaud you for taking on such challenge. I think it's so fabulous. No wonder you're selected by the EU Commission to be part of this fabulous journey. Thank you for sharing your story. Lucas, your turn. We need to drill Nesha about her work.
Yes, indeed. But before I get into that, I must say, 40 minutes into this event, I'm very glad to have been drafted in and to be listening to to everyone. Everything we've heard thus far from Luis and also from Arum is very interesting and is very enlightening to me. And I hopefully will get a chance to visit Lake Toba in the future once the situation improves. And I will try to do so in a sustainable manner. And that's one takeaway from what Arum had to say.
Tourist.
We
will be careful about that too.
But indeed, let's move on to Nesha. So Arum has been talking about working above ground, right, and protecting the environment above ground. But I understand that you, Nesha, you've been focusing on protecting marine biodiversity and working underwater. So you're the lead scientist for the manta and shark projects in eastern Indonesia, and I understand that some people live for diving, others dive for living. So where do you stand? What is it like to live for diving and dive for living, and to do so for research purposes?
Oh, well, that's kind of a challenging question, because I did fall in love with the ocean through diving, but I wouldn't say I would go diving just out of a whim now. It's like a method to do my work. Sometimes it's really cold and I just don't want to be underwater for a long period of time. So yeah, my work is basically quite similar to Arum, which is I research marine species and also the ecosystem, but it's all for the conservation of the area. To kind of put it into its perspective, I actually work in Rote Island, which is the southernmost island of Indonesia and Asia.
Oh, I'm so jealous of you.
Oh, you know where that is?
I've always wanted to go to Rote. You see, as my profession in acting, not like Lucas's acting, a real acting job, I joined a movie called Kulari ke Pantai, Running to the Beach.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was in that movie, but they shot the last scene of the movie in Rote, but I'm not included, so I missed out on going to Rote Island. So I'm so
I
jealous
heard about that.
I've already made a note. I will add it to my to-visit list on Google Maps.
I'm actually very close to Australia. I'm actually closer to Australia than in my own capital city. So yeah, in Rote Island is part of a marine protected area, the Sabusi Marine National Park, which is the biggest marine national park in Indonesia. It's around 3.5 million hectare. And basically, as not dissing on anyone, but yeah, most national park in Indonesia is like a paper park. It's not properly enforced or properly socialized. So we go there to help socialize it with the communities, but also help them be better at managing their own natural resources. Because like farming, you can and also the forest, you can overly exploit natural resources. And when it comes to the ocean, most people just see obviously the surface. They don't see what's going on under the ocean, and there's a lot of fish bombing, cyanide fishing, and overfishing with dangerous and destructive nets, which is basically what we try to stop in Rote for the local community. And when it comes to sharks and rays, it's like a gateway. I call them the mascots. When you try to preserve the habitats of manta rays, and people easily fall in love with manta rays. You can't go to people and say, can you please love this little frogfish that doesn't look very pretty? It doesn't really go very well. So you use the manta rays as a mascot. So when you do protect those areas properly and with the community, you kind of protect everyone and every other species below it.
I must say, manta rays are great mascots. Some months ago, when the situation was better than it is now, I went to the Komodos and I managed to swim with manta rays. It was like Finding Nemo, but very much real. Yes, I was living my boyhood.
It's very hard
dream,
to be sad right next to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a 10-year-old boy again. They're just so majestic, and they just basically makes you feel small next to them as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a memory to cherish. But one more question from my end, if I may. How do local communities receive your work? What are your interactions like? What do they encompass? And what is the response from the local community to your project?
That's a very good question. So as a small NGO that focuses on basically empowering young people such as myself to basically lead the project and not wait for a big NGO to come in with all their agendas, we get the possibility to experiment and innovate the solution with the community. So my first 2 years in Rote was basically just talking to the community. I didn't do that much swimming with manta rays. You barely see any as well. So most of the time is just socializing and understanding the community, what they need, how can we help if there's any problem, and then you start formulating and innovating solution with the communities on what's best for them. So it's just for them, basically. Does that answer the question?
Very much so. Thank you.
Fabulous. I'd just like to remind all of you who are watching in YouTube, Facebook, or who are with us in the Zoom room, please follow at EU in ASEAN EU in ASEAN. Somebody will have to type that in the chat room and share this event. And tag their social media, mention and tag at EU in ASEAN. That would be lovely to hear from your end of what you are watching right now and you think how fabulous our speakers are. I have two questions for Arum and Nesha. Do you love your job? Of course you do. You love your job. Who would want to work with orangutans and whale sharks and manta rays? But my first question, which part of your job that you love the most? Arum.
I would say what I love the most from my job is that I reconnect myself with my identity, as I said before, that what's missing in this nowadays is people are missing from their identity. So I think what I love is every day I go to the field, every day I talk with the local communities in some village in the forest. They will say, before our ancestor or before our parents, blah blah blah, do this and do this. So I would say, so we are the Tapanuli people. Actually, is really we are so responsible with our environment. So what I love to with my job is, as always, there's a chance to learn new and learn something in your hometown without going to the best university, without going to read the expense journal or article. You just hear it from a farmer in the middle of nowhere, so it's really that's what I job. Back to your question, that's what I love from my job. Thank you.
I love it how people say to you, our ancestor used to do this and now you are doing what they're doing. So it's preserving nature and your culture identity as well. That's fabulous. Nesha, how about you? Of course, it's gonna be the diving part, but yeah, what do you love about your job? Well, we all get really jealous about what you do. Tell me more.
Well, I'm a bit like you. You have two personalities, as in you have your comedian side and your normal Liguina side. Not normal, it's another side. I didn't say that. I have two sides, which is the scientist in me obviously loves being in the ocean and learning about the species and seeing and observing behaviors that you've never seen before. Is just, it makes you closer to Mother Nature. But the conservationist in me, the best part about my job is basically listening in and being connected to the community and having a purpose. And if you basically can make a little change in this world, make it a little better, that's the best part.
I'm sure everybody can sense the sense of fulfillment, the happiness genuinely oozing out of these two panelists here, how much they love and enjoy their job and how it's basically beneficial for other people. Now the difficult part, the difficult question, what is the most frustrating element of your job in conservation? I know it's not a difficult job. It's not an easy job to do. It's a very difficult job to do. But what is your most frustrating moment or steps that you have to do in conservation? Nesha, would you like to start?
It is a bit frustrating, but also kind of I kind of love it as well. That the fact that as a conservationist, you kind of have to be 10 kind of worker at the same time. So you got to be good at communicating, you got to be good at the sciencing, you got to be good at talking to the government, all the way to the fishermen, which is a completely different language. And also you got to be good at writing proposal, that's probably the most frustrating thing. Writing proposals for grant is like mind-numbingly.
Somebody has to do the dirty job, writing proposal.
Especially during this pandemic where you can't go in the ocean and you're just in front of the laptop. That's just soul-sucking to me. That's probably the most frustrating.
I love the honesty. Yeah, somebody has to do the dirty job of writing proposals.
Exactly, and especially if you're in a small NGO, you're basically that's all your job.
You do everything.
Exactly.
Arum, how about you? What is the most frustrating part of your job?
I think it's quite same with what Nisa said, but I think as living in the rural area, the most frustrating is the lacking of access. So sometimes talking to the government, also when you are talking to the government, is not much access to talking with the government. And once you get the access, the government just listen to you and maybe just say thank you and clap their hand, and that's all. And another problem, lacking to access with the government, also lacking to access with the fund to the donors, as Nessa said. I working as an individual, not I have no privilege to build an NGO or the organization. So I think it's not much, not many donors giving the funding to the individual, but I received some funding from the donors. But I think one of the frustrating one is the lack access and donor, yeah. Access to funding, access to the government, yeah.
Arum, isn't it when you already get through to one government and he's doing so well for 4 years and then they change it, so you have to do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bapak Kepala Bagian is no longer with us. That's it.
Exactly.
You have to work with
And the next
someone
one
else.
might not be as nice as well, so you have to be losing again.
I can imagine it's not an easy task. Just a reminder to everybody, don't let me and Lucas do all the questioning. Please drop your question in the Q&A box and we will be sorting it out later. But I think Lucas has a very fascinating question for both Arum and Nesha. Go ahead, Lucas.
I'm thinking which fascinating question it is, because we've already received one fascinating question from the audience, and I'm tempted to ask it. But
not yet. Don't
not
throw
yet.
in the
Okay,
timeline.
I have another. All right, I have another fascinating question then. If someone asks you, how can I get a job in conservation like you? You know, if you have a 15-year-old or a 20-year-old, if you have a 32-year-old like me, that no longer applies. But you know, if you can find someone who approaches you with a question like this, what do you say? What kind of advice would you give? Basically, if someone asks, I want to be like you, what do you answer?
Okay. Can I go first then?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say you don't have to be a marine biologist to be in the conservation, because science is, it's a small part. We need better communicator, better fundraiser, better at, policy advocacy. So focus on those different kinds of skills and start volunteering with an NGO and basically build the network. That's it.
I love that answer, because a lot of people tend to think one way, right? You want to work in marine conservation, you become a scientist, when actually it's a multidisciplinary world out there. Anyone can contribute with their different skills. So I really, really love that answer. Arum, you want to answer Lucas's question as well?
Sure. That's a perfect answer from Nesha, but I also would like to add some answer, like look the problems around you. I think it's really important. If you want to be a conservationist, look the problem around you. If you are, and I believe in the power of local action. You know, if you are a local people, local youth, there's so many problems around you. No matter if you are in the pitlands, forest, marine, wherever, what landscape you belong to, just look the problem and then try to address the problem and see where can you help and contribute. Maybe if you cannot start by yourself, you can volunteer, as Nessa said, to the NGO or to the people who are doing the job. But if you can build your own NGO, or if you can build your own action, do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're liking their answers, Lucas. Obviously, you're
Yeah,
nodding.
I'm taking my proverbial hat off.
Are you changing jobs after this? Are you changing job after this? Are you
It's not too late, Lucas. 32 is a youth, technically, the older youth.
You have 3 more years, Lucas.
3 more years. I'll keep it in mind.
Thank you, Arum and Arum and Nesha. I was saying Arum and Hamid, the same person. Thank you, Arum and Nesha. We will come back and talking to you again. But let's welcome. Come on, Sawadika. Come on, hi.
Hi. Sawadika, you get it right?
Yeah, did I get it right?
Yes.
Sawadika. And Luis was teaching me how to say Mabuhay, and then Sawadika apparently is to be said in that friendly, smiley face as well. Sawadika. That's true. All right. We talk about this from Indonesia, and they're working in remote areas. Tapanuli Utara, which is North Sumatra, near Lake Toba, where the forests are green. And Nesha is in Rote Island, the southern tip of Indonesia. Both are remote and very limited access to get there. Meanwhile, we also have someone like you who's in Fashion Revolution. You are the country coordinator for Fashion Revolution Thailand. And this may be a strange question, but when you open your laptop today, what exactly do you do?
So first of all, I'm so jealous of them, the people like Desha and Aram, who get to see the seas and the forest every day. Well, I got to see like the buildings and my laptop. But so so actually, I work in many aspects, but my job as a country coordinator wasn't actually a job, it's a work, so meaningful work that is a volunteer. But doing this country coordinator position give me my job. Do you get that? So I was volunteering for I was being a volunteer activist for 3 years, and then like with that I had built my career path out of what I'm passionate about and with my purpose. So actually before I was a clothing designer, but at the moment I didn't design products or clothing anymore. I shift my focus to design more like workshops or processes, research, or those kind of design systems that's around the creation of design or businesses. So what I work on my laptop is a lot of keynotes, a lot of conceptual strategy, and also like a lot of Zoom actually, doing community practices, like how to create relationships between people, to grow a community, to find like we do a lot of like talking together and also help each other to design what are the best way to raise awareness around sustainability for fashion in Thailand, and also how could we help businesses or brand owners to transform into a more like circular or sustainable business. So those kind of things. So I kind of step back from being a designer, like just like everyone think of this term, but actually a designer does much more than that. We can design experiences, workshop services, many kind of things. So I kind of reskilled myself along the way, and I'm still in the process of doing that now, because for the industry, actually, we moved from the manufacturing era, right, into the information and knowledge era. And I felt like that's the part that's very essential. And I don't think that green jobs are only for scientists or marine conservators, but also artists.
Definitely.
Even musicians or designers, people with the arts and humanities can engage a lot as well in terms of like, giving a more human approach to this. Like, how do we make people care about this and make it sexy, make it beautiful, rather than like telling them how bad it is for global warming and things like that.
You're giving me goosebumps, because we just talked to Nesha, who said that, being a scientist is just one part of the work that she's doing. And Arum is talking about how he goes back to his roots, his communities, the identity of being a Tapanuli man. Stop talking about the ancestors used to do this. And then suddenly here you are, just, come out of volunteering work and then suddenly building a career and creating your own green job. That's fascinating. I need to rephrase Lucas's question previously asked to Arun and Nesha. So I'm stealing this question that Lucas just did to Nesha and Arun. Come on, let me ask you this question, a similar question that Lucas just gave to Arun and Nesha. If a 15-year-old comes to you and asks, how can I get a job like you? How will you respond to them?
First, I need to find a way to describe my job to them. Simply. And then I I will tell them that to find the way to get a learning, not an education, but a learning in different areas, in different worlds, different disciplines. For example, I felt like the jobs that we need for the next 10 years, 20 years are not really fit in one category at all. We need a lot of collaboration between interdisciplinary teams. We need scientists work with designers. We need people in the lab and artists. A lot of collaboration and networks that need to connect the dot. Because from my experience in working in this field, a lot of it depends on the collaboration between people and organizations to actually make something happen. And if we have only limited or only one specialism, that would be harder for you to get a job in this era. I don't say that a specialist is not good, it's necessary, but also you have to know and can speak the language of other disciplines. So I think that has to do a lot with the school issues and the education system of the country as well. So for me, but I felt like that's not the case, that if you stay in a country where the main education system is not updated to the real world or the professional world, just like mine, but we can find a lot of,
but we adapt.
We can find a way to adapt, to find knowledge. We are connected to the internet at the moment, and I learned a lot from online courses. I learned so much from, participating in Zoom webinars like this. And, with the COVID, you can access so much sessions from, from Europe, from America, from the other parts of the world. So I think being a global citizen in this era is really important. Opening up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kevin. That was very, very good, I must say. And yeah, you made a very good point. There are so many resources out there these days, and we all are finding ourselves in a fairly precarious situation with the pandemic. But we can always use perhaps the time while isolating ourselves socially, keeping social distance, etc., to learn something new, and it could be life-changing. Who knows? But my notes suggest that you have already given many talks in universities, foundations, TEDx, etc., and you're obviously very good at talking, as we could just hear that. And you talk about the fashion industry, sustainability, making of these clothes. My question is the following: how sustainable is it to talk about sustainable fashion or design? Do you ever get tired of talking about it? And how do people receive what you have to say and what you have to share?
I felt like that's the important part of the job, the essential part, because I didn't intend to, be a speaker or to get paid from speaking at all. But I think I was a communicator by nature. I wrote a blog 10 years ago. I have established a blog in Thailand, which I write these stories about like textile, craft, local communities, art, and fashion. And then I think that when I came back to Thailand from the UK, I studied my master there, I see the gap that a lot of, the majority of people, the scene, hadn't realized the impact of fast fashion or, knowing this term sustainable fashion at all. So we are still talking about like plastics and those kind of things. But I think just 3 years ago when we started Fashion Revolution in Thailand, I felt like there's so much need to clarify the problems and also the solutions so that people realize more and more about this. And that's part of the main thing that's the main part, which I said that when people realize that these are actually one of the area that needs attention, then so many opportunities coming up from them. So now I get contact from a lot of brands and also some factory owners asking me to be a consultant or asking me how they can adopt this circular design, circular economy, or sustainable design within their businesses. Maybe not the product itself, but how to transform the business. So I think that's the part that we need visibility for important issues, because otherwise, I don't think it's the visibility alone, is the way of communication as well. Like, for example, when we communicate about the environment or saving the planet, in Thailand, we think of like, a more like a less sexy version of this, like a very NGO or activists, that the mainstream, I'm talking about the mainstream people who are interested in, beauty, fashion, girls, like young girls, which I mean, I used to be the consumer of fast fashion. Like, I shop a lot. I love fashion. I love art. But when I realized this, I also think that there needs to be a way to communicate it better as well, so that people like youth who aren't really into, these social or environmental practices can listen to and felt interested and jump in as well. Because I think that the mainstream are the big part of the problem as well.
If I may follow up with just one more question, a very short one, and perhaps a short answer.
Hold on. Lucas, hold on. I need to read this comment from Nesha. Nesha is saying, I'm really hoping my friends and family are watching you right now. Come on, because they relate more to fashion than coral reefs. And I'm like, I'm listening here as well. So basically, green jobs can be something so near to us and close to our life. It is important about conserving in the forest and in the seas, but sometimes it might be just something around the corner. Go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, on yourself. Right.
Yes, indeed. And this is my question. Kind of, it feeds into everything that has been said, even by you, Ligwina. So, come on, what is your advice when it comes to clothes and sustainability? How can we make our habits more sustainable? What would you like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about sustainable clothes, now we might think about the term like recycle plastics, recycle plastic bottles made into fibers, right? But actually, the first thing that everyone could do is to reduce. So reduce the amount of the clothes you buy, and also increase the amount of use of the clothes you own. So it's like, using as much the clothes you have as much as possible, because the problem doesn't lie in the cloth itself, is the usage, because clothes are made to last 100 years time, but now we use 3 months and then, or maybe one time on Instagram and throw it away, right? And for youths, some groups, but I think that
I'm sorry, I feel attacked. I feel attacked.
Sorry. I mean, I felt like that.
Louise is also saying, I'm with you. Go ahead, come on, go ahead.
Like, it's not that I felt like the marketing, the culture, the marketing, especially for women, we have so much social pressure to look good, to keep up with the trends and everything. But I really want to support women to, love yourself, be confident in your own skin, and find your own style without following the trends. Yeah, so I think that's also related to mental health issues for young people right now, playing social media a lot, right? Comparing yourself on friends on Instagram, those kind of things also really drive our consumption. So I think that's one of the things, to be self-aware. And then the second thing, which is really effective here in Thailand, is that like last year, I experiment for myself due to COVID as well, cannot shopping, right? I stopped buying clothes, and then I only swap clothes with friends, buying secondhand, and support only local designers. And I managed to save like more than $1,000 on clothes per year. And I kind of calculate and tell this on my Twitter how much I save money from not buying new clothes, and people just go crazy. So it's so much more effective than telling them how clothes bad are for the environment and blah blah blah. So I think if you see the benefits for yourself, how it can help your mental health and your own savings, your pocket, then you don't have to choose between your own style and the planet. And I think that's a win-win for everyone, ourselves, the planet, and workers.
That's a very strong message. I think I want to copy Nessa's statement earlier about how the manta rays are the mascot. You need to go around this huge issue with coral reefs and talk about the manta rays. So people will go around it and say, oh, yeah, we do want to support the coral reefs, but hang on, manta rays are cute, you know? So I think with fashion, you can have money as the mascot. You save $1,000, people are like, I'm listening. But how about all these designers, all these fashion entrepreneurs? Won't they suffer when we... This is gonna help me out on this now. Come on, Luis. But no,
I get a lot of questions from... Yeah, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what advice would you like to give the aspiring fashion, work sustainable and profitable as well? That would be a professional advice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure. So I myself hadn't found this advice before. So I just quit designing clothes because I couldn't, I was so overwhelmed by the problems I saw in the industry. But now the more knowledge I gain, the more experience, I can say that actually there's a way to build the business, a sustainable business. So especially in the ASEAN, we are the land full of resources and artisans and cultural diversity. I'm so jealous of indigenous people in the communities who can, use natural dye and weave their own fabrics. And in Thailand, I support this a lot. So I support designers to go work with craft people to support women in local communities in the villages. And that's part of the way to reduce inequality from the global supply chain as well, and support, both designer and craftsmen. And the way you design as well, the fabrics you use, you can buy from those communities or use more upcycle. For example, like you can use secondhand clothes as a resources. You can use scrap fabrics as a resources. This would be harder than just, drawing anything beautiful on paper and, just do it, because you need much more creativity to use the scraps and waste to make it beautiful again. So that's a real challenge, and we call that a circular design. So that's the way we think about the upstream, like since not just the recycle part, but before we select the materials. So the materials, the design, the pattern, all of the elements can be sustainable if you think carefully about that. The only problem for this is the cost, because the cost will be higher when you support the local or a slow fashion, because actually I don't think it's a high cost at all, but because we have fast fashion that made us felt like that's expensive. So I encourage people to buy with quality in mind rather than quantity. And with the cost as well, that's why I give so much talks. We need consumer demands and understanding to support these kind of businesses to stay alive within this hard recession after COVID. I think that for the cost, that's like you can also find other ways to do business as well, like not as usual, not only relying on selling more clothes to get more profit, right? You can also do workshops, you can also teach, you can also do so many things as a designer, not just relying on selling stuff. So if you not put yourself in the box of selling or being a merchant, you can find that actually the brand can be a hub for so many cultural activities and connecting communities together and find a way to make your meaningful income from that. And that's what I believe.
That's definitely wisdom words from someone.
Can I give one example? No, just definitely. I have one really cool example from Thailand, because we just submit this one brand to the COP26 summit in Scotland the end of this year as part of Fashion Revolution. So the brand is called Pulcram, and they work with the local communities in the northeast part of Thailand. And one thing that she told me is that the more you support the women in local communities, the more voices they have, the more independence they have for their family. They can pay for themselves, they be more resilient in themselves. And also with the COVID situation, and this is quite relevant to this topic, being resilient, because being resilient means that you can adapt and you can restore yourself from any crisis, right? It doesn't mean that you like stay like linear like this, but it's more like you can dance with the flow. And she told me that with the COVID, actually the communities does not get affected at all because they were not rely on so much external factors like the global markets or global supply chain. They work together and they also grow food, and they also like with the clothes
So life is normal
they
in their
design.
community.
Yeah, I mean the clothes they design is not disposable because it won't get expired with the trends, just like the normal fashion. So you can keep the stock and sell it while the economy comes back. So that's the part that they told me that I felt like that's quite inspiring. Yeah.
The words of wisdom from someone who definitely clearly understand what she's talking about. I'm sure a lot of people here agree with me that Kamon really knows what she's talking about. I am going to try to stop buying too much clothes to be able to save more. Hold on, I thought I'm the finance person here. Thank you, Kamon. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Be
now
aware
back
of the
to-
sales tag.
Back to you, Lucas. What do you think? How can we get better and use a European Union initiative to engage young people in the movement towards sustainable economy? The panelists have been showing there are so many different kind of ways. How is this connected with EU initiatives?
Well, thanks very much, Weena. What I feel right now is that the bar is set so high by our panelists.
That's true.
I'm really feeling the pressure to say something enlightening and to do it in an interesting way. So let me give it a shot, but I cannot guarantee that the result will be a good one. Basically, I think yet again, I'll say it for the third time, when we think about climate change as public servants, we talk about policies, we talk about goals, we talk about net emissions reductions and targets. I've already mentioned 55% by 2030. We want to go carbon neutral by 2050 as the European Union. And you see the headlines, you see the one headline that I keep seeing after yesterday's policy announcement is that only electric cars will be allowed to be sold in Europe from 2035. But this is not what it is. I mean, when it comes to policy, it is for the people and by the people, and we really need a buy-in for everyone. I think it's becoming fairly clear that climate change is really, really out there. All of us have different stories to share from our regions, from our hometowns, perhaps even. We just need to think about how to make our lives different, better, more sustainable, and how to really think in greener terms. I think all of us can make little changes that go a long way, and it is very much like Aaron mentioned earlier on. Just look around you. There's so much that you can do, even as a young person, even as an individual, to make little things happen, which could turn into an avalanche, right? It's bit by bit. So I think this is my overall message, and how it relates to ASEAN. Some of you may know that the European Union has earmarked 60 million euro for climate change and environment management. Everything from peatlands, forests, conservation areas, and the overall message is to improve livelihoods in these environments. But the biggest takeaway from today's session, at least for me, is that we've heard 4 fascinating stories that really demonstrate that things can happen. Even if you're young, you can make a lot of difference. You can have your own project, which goes a very, very long way in terms of making some real difference. So I hope that this will be a seed which will eventually bloom into a flower for all the participants, and all of us will be taking something very concrete from today's session. But we're not done yet. We still have time. You're on mute.
We're
Now
not
it's my
done
turn
yet.
to say
We're
it.
just getting started.
Indeed.
And yes, I love the connection between European Union and ASEAN, because climate change is a global issue. We cannot work on it alone. It cannot be about saving Europe only. It cannot be about saving Southeast Asia only. It has to be, everybody needs to contribute, and we need to talk more about this, and that's what this talk show is all about, isn't it? To be able to talk about this more, and people get awareness and eventually get into action. And if you talk about action, our 4 panelists are the ones who are showing you how they're doing it according to their skills, according to their communities. And of course, now it's time for your questions to the panelists. Let's find out what kind of questions we have. Okay. Let's welcome back all our panelists, Luis, Kamon, Nesha, and Arum. Let me check. Which question do we need to answer first? Ibu Dian and team, do you have the question to select for me? I would love to start asking these questions. Hold on, because there are 140 people in the Zoom room, and I don't know how many more are watching from YouTube and Facebook. Please don't forget to tag at EU in ASEAN. That's the social media account that you should be following by now. And when you post anything regarding this talk show, do tag their account at EU in ASEAN. So we're ready for the questions. Which one do we use now for the questions? Hold on.
I think what we can do, we have a direct question from Benhar Riman. So perhaps you would like to ask the question? And you'll be allowed to talk, I hear.
From the committee. Who is working on this?
Hello?
Yes,
hello.
Please go ahead. Finally.
Hi, what's your name and where are you based and what's your question? Hello.
Hello, I'm from Kendari, Indonesia.
Oh, hi. Apa kabar? Kakak dari Kendari. What's your
Halo,
name?
apa kabar? Hai, ma'am.
What's your name?
My name is Ben Hariman Saputra, but you can call me Ben.
Okay, Ben. What's your question? Who are you asking this question to?
Okay, basically, I have 2 questions. May I?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the first question is, I would like to ask all the panelists as the prompter or the pioneer of these green jobs. I would like to ask, how do you guys make an adaptation with your job during this pandemic situation? Is there anything full of change after this pandemic outbreak become a global pandemic?
Okay. What's your second question?
My second question is for who is his name? The last speaker.
Come on, is it?
Yeah, Kamot. Yes.
Yes.
Kamot. Would you like to tell me the details? I'm fascinating. I was captivating with what you did about fashion sector. I would like to do the same in my local community. Can you give me some suggestion? What is the best way for me to make a good campaign about fashion sector? So I would like to inspire more people to do the same as you did, to reuse, recycle wardrobe, stop buying new wardrobe, like that, something like that. I would like to get a suggestion from you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Benhar. That's Benhar Iman.
Thank
he
you, ma'am.
is from Kendari, and if you are not familiar, Kendari is a city in the island of Sulawesi. That's the one in the middle of Indonesia that looks like the letter K. I used to grow up in that island too. So Benhar, we probably can speak a little bit of Bugis along the way. All right, first question to all the panelists, all 4 of you. How do you adapt in the pandemic, what has changed with your line of work when it's a global pandemic? Luis, you might want to answer this first.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for me, I would have to say because it's farming, it's still an essential job, so it didn't evolve so much. But new aspects popped up in the pandemic where we participated more in policy, where we were able to petition our local government to localize food systems and build food sovereignty to make sure that people purchased directly from our farmers, especially in the supply chain of how things go within logistics of food systems. And then another thing I would say is, yeah, definitely localizing food systems and building food sovereignty and working with young people and women as well to empower them to actually build better livelihoods, especially since people are losing so many jobs within the pandemic. And agriculture is something that's accessible to everyone.
Yeah, a lot of people in the tourism industry are suffering and are actually going back into agriculture to survive. So that's probably what is driving the agriculture comeback. Arum, what is different in your line of job in the pandemic?
Yeah, I think during the pandemic, with the local communities, let's say when we are conducting the focus group discussions of the FGD, we should implement the health protocol, like less than 20 people involved, and also using the masks. But I think it's still easy to implement. But when it comes to educating young people, this is quite hard because not all the young people in the rural area they have access to the technology, to the laptop or the Android using the internet, something like that. We still go to the village to educate young people, but we are we try to minimize the participant. So we still like less than 20 people, and also we minimize the time when we are doing the education, just like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but we make it as much as efficient that we can. I think it's still there are still some adaptation and changes we do in our activities.
Health protocols in place, that's right.
Yes.
Arum. How about you, Nesha? What's changed in your line of work? Are people in Rote all right?
Yeah, especially after the cyclone that we had. We never have a cyclone. Obviously, Philippines feels a little different than us. But in my line of work, definitely it was a bit frustrating in the beginning of the pandemic, especially because not in Rote itself, but a lot of marine protected areas in Indonesia became less and less patrolled and enforced because of the pandemic. So there was a lot more boats that goes into marine protected areas undetected, and we just can't do anything about it. And of course, as you said, the tourism industry also stopped, so a lot of people resorted back to fishing, which obviously not their fault. It's a way of living, but obviously not all, but some resorted back to destructive fishing as well. So that was a little bit frustrating, and not being able to go back to Rote because of lack of funds was another thing that we can't do. But the silver lining is all these Zoom webinars happened every week or every month at least, for all of us youth. So that was a way that I could still do my job, which is basically a lot of advocacy, raising awareness, basically talking more about my job to a wider audience. You do what you can during a pandemic, I guess.
Thank you. I think Kamon has mentioned that a lot of her work now is from one Zoom call to another. So I'm just going to direct Kamon to a different question from Ben, which is, do you have any suggestion, or are there best ways for Ben in Kendari to change the way people provide a campaign in his own community about fashion sector, fashion recycling and upscaling? And he's very interested in the line of work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I think this question is the answer will be different to different contexts and communities. And since I don't know your communities, like how the people wear clothes, I couldn't see the picture in my mind, but I imagine that within any small communities, you could establish some a group of people that start this small together. For example, in my case, we start from a few people meet every month to swap our clothes rather than buying new clothes. And I think from that we can grow a little bit more and more. So this is one way. And the other way is about the campaigning. So I'm not sure how like disposable clothes are within your area, but if there's a landfill, if there's an obvious thing, you can illustrate this clearly and tell them that, and I mean show to the people the impact of their consumption. The other way I felt really beneficial, really empowering for me is to be part of the global community, because I wouldn't be able to do this work if I'm the only one doing it in Bangkok. So Fashion Revolution is actually a global network that established in the UK, but we are volunteers in 90 countries. So in the Philippines, in Indonesia, there's a country coordinator like me working in campaigning. So if you contact your own country coordinator, and like she will or he will give you the guide on how to do the campaign. So in the website of Fashion Revolution, we have an open source downloadable posters, toolkits, that you can really get started from there. There's a toolkit for producers, students, educators, consumers, citizens, policymakers. Like you can use this as a part to engage any stakeholder. So I think that's the beautiful part of being part of the global network, because I wouldn't be able to do all of this work on my own at all. Yeah. And also this gives you credibility, so people will listen because it comes from other country as well.
Yeah, it's Fashion Revolution guidelines. That would be fabulous.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how it's actually tailored in different communities and tailored in different countries. Yeah, come on. Thank you. Lucas, do you have a second person who's we're going to invite into the question?
We do have a second person. So may I ask Iktiana Anissa to ask her question? Iktiana, are you with us?
Iktiana. Hello. Iktiana.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, there you are. Hi, Iktiana. Where are you from?
Hey, my name is Iktiana Anissa, and I'm from Kendari, Sulawesi Tenggara, Indonesia.
Another one from Kendari. Hey. All right, go ahead, Iktiana. What's your question?
First of all, I want to thanks for the opportunity. Actually, my English is not good, but
it's good. It's perfectly fine. We love hearing from you.
I want to ask Arum and Nesha Ichida that how to start a social project during this pandemic, and how to start it with motivation that began these lines during this pandemic, because during this pandemic we tend to be lazy. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. All right, that's a legitimate question. Arum and Nesha, how do we start a social project in the middle of this pandemic? Because let's be honest, we tend to be lazy in the pandemic. We're stuck at home. What's your response to that? Nesha, you want to start first?
I'm kind of hoping Arum would start, because I'm still thinking.
I'm picking on you. I'm picking on you because obviously you're sitting in front of the beach. So I'm just going to pick on you.
I say thank God.
Oh, no.
Go ahead, Nesha.
How to start a project during a pandemic? Don't think about the pandemic and look for the problem straight away in your community and see what you can do. Obviously, healthcare protocol in place. Don't get 100 people at one time. Yeah, I'm not very good at this.
But that's a good one. Don't think about the pandemic. Think about a problem within your community and make sure whatever you're doing, you keep your health protocol in place. I'll take that as an answer. I'm not going to make it difficult for you.
Well, it also depends on what social problem you want to do as well. right now there's a lot of social issue, unemployment, hunger during the pandemic. So whatever you can help, it does help the society. And obviously, if you're near nature, it's not very much taken care of during this pandemic. So anyone who can help a little bit more in that area always helps.
Thank you, Nash. How about you, Arum? Being
Well,
someone who's on the field all the time, what would you say for Ihtiana?
Yeah, I think I can relate to Itiana question because I also start my new project during the pandemic. So you can combine the virtual and also on-site project. So maybe I would like to share my story in this project. I'm currently doing a storytelling project. So this is a project when I interview the people in Tapanuli. They could be like a farmer, conservationist, artist who make a change in Tapanuli. It's mostly how their issue they bring into the ground, like how the conservationists what they want to deliver to the young people. So some of my informant, I have to meet them in their village. I have to travel to Lake Toba. I have to travel, but some of them I can do a Zoom or virtual like Skype or video call with them. So I think you can use the digital to start your social project. So back to Nesha answer again. This is also what social project you want to do. So if in my case, like a storytelling project or educational project, still possible to combine the digital and also on-site work. But if most of your work will be on site, make sure you implement the health protocol and try to involve as minimum people as could be. Yeah, thank you.
Actually, it's kind of perfect what Arum said. If you want to start it right now, would be the best time because planning is just usually talking. So Zoom, cuts all logistic. You don't have to drive anywhere.
And cut your carbon
money.
footprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Thanks, Adrian.
Yes, thanks very much. We have one last question, and I will read it out. So let me have a shot at it, and it's for Luis. So, Luis, what is your opinion about automation of the agriculture industry from a green job perspective, considering that it could risk local workers' jobs, and those jobs could be replaced by machinery, but it could also increase the productivity significantly. Where do you stand on this?
I mean,
that's the
a
question.
Really relevant question, considering that it spans all industries, that automation is a concern because green jobs or just regular jobs could be lost to machines. But in terms of agriculture, I think that's why we need to move to just transitions, because machinery, although it works, it still promotes mass scale of agriculture or fashion or whatever it is. And our mission is to promote regenerative and local, for me, agroforestry. And on one hand, technology can help us, but on the other hand, the goal of technology can also move towards mass farming. So it depends on the technology and automation and its goal. And on the other hand, not everyone can automate. So because of landscapes limitations or agrarian reform policies. So automation is not necessarily an option that's available and accessible. So that's why I think we need more innovation in this industry, whose goal isn't just productivity, but it's also regeneration, that we can also evolve to create more inclusive and green jobs for people whose jobs were previously at risk for being phased out by automation. So I'm going to just use this as a call to action for people watching, that you should start cultivating green skills and normalizing green jobs as a standard in your industry.
Thank you very much. That was very good. I think indeed automation may not necessarily mean the end of these jobs as such, and I'm sure that there will be many more opportunities for everyone. Anyway, Ligwina, I think you have something to say now at this point.
Yes, definitely. So after all the questions answered by the panelists, now it's time for me to ask questions to all our panelists. Hold on. to your seats because we're going to have a game right now. Are you ready? All right, this is going to be a game. I'm going to ask a question, and to all the panelists, can you get your pen, spittle, and paper ready? Oh, Nesha and Luis are ready. Come on, are you ready? Arum, are you ready? With the pen and paper. Lucas, are you ready?
Do I get to play?
You're supposed to.
Okay, I'm ready then.
Your
Yes,
job
okay.
will be at risk because if you don't know more than these guys, then it will be trouble.
It will be automated, just lost to AI. That's
Okay,
fine.
here we go. True or false? So how much do you know about EU-ASEAN? That's the theme of the questions. First question, are you ready? True or false? The EU became ASEAN's dialogue partner in 1977. Is it true or false? Dum, 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 dum.
That's a
Nesha
T.
says true. Luis, I can't see it. True, okay. Come on says true. Arum says true. Lucas.
I know the answer. It is true. Yeah.
Okay, so we have started the dialogue for a very long time. Number two. Everybody should know this. Which country won the Euro 2020? 2020, not 2021.
I didn't watch football anyway.
This is all about football. Can we change it into badminton question?
I didn't watch it as well, but it was like all over the news. You can't miss it.
Oh no. Then you don't get my joke.
Right?
No one gets my joke then.
No, yeah, I see that. I see. I'm trying to ignore it because this household support the other team. Okay, here we go. Only for the panelists. So Lucas is excluded.
Oh, thank God.
Mention your most favorite cuisine, just one, from a different ASEAN country. For example, I like Indomie in my country, but my answer will be Tom Yum from Thailand. Oh, Nesha is saying Tom Yum. All right. Arum is saying Pad Thai. Luis, I can't read it. You need to read it out for me.
Indonesia's beef rendang.
Beef rendang, all right. Rizky is saying spring roll from Vietnam. This is Southeast Asia Unite.
Right.
Right. Like, come on.
Nasi goreng.
Nasi goreng. Marley is saying nasi lemak. Oh, I miss traveling to Malaysia for their brilliant nasi lemak. So yeah, everybody with the food question, everybody just goes on with their answers. Everybody, I think the chat room just exploded. We just need to talk about rice now.
I see
rice. There's
how you unite ASEAN.
I see no love for banh mi though. I think that's one of my favorites.
For Vietnam, nasi full of carbo. I don't mind that.
I love rendang.
No one love rendang. Danielle, Luis is saying rendang. Don't worry. There you go. So that is so much fun. We are united by our food, people. All right. So thank you, everybody. This has been a very inspiring talk show. So Luis, come on, Nesha, Arum, and of course Lucas. I am so inspired today. I'm not going to immediately, but going to slowly cut down my carbon footprint, slowly manage my fashion addiction, be more mindful about what I do with the ocean. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm not doing enough destruction because I'm stuck in the room. But of course, also be careful about where you buy your food. As Luis is mentioning, it's important to support the farmer. And I think one of the most fascinating message from Arum is go back to your roots, Stop saying it's about your ancestors. It's actually about us doing the work today. It's not what our ancestors have done. It's what we do that matters for the future of the planet. I'd like to invite everybody to post in your social media. There's a challenge here. You need to post with the hashtag Green Jobs for Youth. And when you do that, there's a Twibbon that you can use. Maybe the comedy can, yeah, there it is. Alita has posted in the chat room. Join the social media campaign, snap, share, and win. And you can upload and download your picture at that link below. Post it in your social media and make sure your account is not private. You need to mention and tag at EU in ASEAN and make sure you tag 3 friends. Okay, take your 3 friends because I need you to tell people how fabulous we have been doing today. I need that kind of encouragement. And 5 most inspiring and encouraging messages on the hashtag Green Jobs for Youth will be rewarded with an EU special hampers, not a visa. No. This has nothing to do with the visa approval, only with the special hampers, of course, special from the European Union. So there you go. Lucas, would you like to say a few words to close our session with our fabulous?
I will say a few words, but I don't think they will be as relevant as the words of our panelists. So let me hide behind that fig leaf and perhaps invite our panelists for one last time to conclude, just to give one sentence perhaps about what they're taking away from today's session or what they would like you as the audience to take away from this session. So let's start with Louise, please. What would you like to share with us, Louise?
I think that something I would take away from this panel is that everyone has a stake in transitioning over to green jobs, and it's up to youth as well now who are playing a huge role in that. And we hope to see more of the audience actively participate in making a difference.
Thank you very much, Louise. Arun, what would you like us to take away from today, or the audience? What do you take away from today?
I think I read it somewhere that they said like, you don't have to be a perfect environmentalist. All you can do is like do what you can do imperfectly. We need more and more people to do environmental friendly lifestyle imperfectly. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Now, this is something that resonates with me. I'll try to think about that later on today. Nesha, your turn, please.
I would just say to all the youths, be brave and just a little stubborn enough to revolutionize our job industry into a little bit more green for our future.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, come on, please.
I was going to say the same thing as Aaron, but I'm going to repeat him and add something. So I felt like don't put so much pressure on yourself to, be all in all like 100% sustainable or green, because we won't be perfect and we not aim for perfection. We should aim for progress, and also change takes time. And that's what I always tell myself as well, that it takes so much time and patience and effort to be sustainable, but for yourself as well as for your work. Otherwise, it's not well-being for you and the planet as well.
Yeah, those are very wise words. I think
all.
it was Confucius who said, it doesn't matter how slowly you go as long as you don't stop. So indeed, progress takes time, and we go step by step. Okay, I think it's time for me to say goodbye and thank you. I hope that you have found today's panel useful. I've certainly found it to be very useful, but I would like Ligwina to have the last word.
Okay, hold on. We need to let Louise come back. There you go. You went away for a while. This is a very Southeast Asian thing to do. We need to take a picture of ourselves.
Okay.
Elita, Badian, can you help us out here and take pictures of me, Lucas, and our fabulous panelists? So here we go. I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then take a picture. Well, everyone else can also take our pictures. All right, are you ready? Pose for the picture. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. And this is, I'm so sad to say this, the end of our Youth Talk series, EU-ASEAN Youth Talk Show, Green Jobs for a Resilient Youth. There you go. You've heard it from the best of the best. And I hope one day you will join us back at the EU Youth Talk series. My name is Liguina Hananto, together with Lucas Gaidos, and I'm saying his name right. Thank you, goodbye, and have a fabulous day. Bye.
Thank you. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
I want Europe to become the first climate neutral continent in the world by 2050.
European Green Deal could be a cornerstone for changing our politics, changing our economies, changing.
The Just Transition Fund is...
If we want to deliver, obviously mobilizing EU funds is
That's exactly what we want to do.
most importantly is the works which are going to be done.
Appropriate support for their new obligations. We need everyone, and no one will get left behind.
As we continue to battle the pandemic, we must also focus on our long-term challenges. This is why the Green Deal, as a growth strategy, remains our compass throughout the recovery.
We will reduce emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And today's agreement puts us on a clear path towards climate neutrality in 2050. It gives certainty to investors, to businesses, to public authorities, and to citizens. It future-proofs our union.